So I want to talk to y'all real quick about spoiler culture. This is something that's been on my mind since the full synopsis for Dragon Ball Superhero came out, and I want to talk to y'all about it because it's something that's important to me and something that needs to be discussed as Dragon Ball fans. Whether you are a fan who's been watching for 30 years or for 3 years, whether you watched it in English, or you've seen all the different dubs, Kai, Z, it doesn't matter. Being a Dragon Ball content creator is different than being a content creator for other things because we're dealing with a Japanese IP, right? And when you're dealing with a Japanese IP, things change quite a bit. Not only do a lot of the information, whether it be an official announcement or a leak, come out in the middle of the night for us over here in the West because of the time zone differences. And that, to me, led to a lot of sleepless nights for me during Dragon Ball Super's run. But we're also dealing with a Japanese company. Now, I've talked in the past about Totally Not Mark's situation with Toei, and I've had my own problems with Shueisha and Toei with copyright claims. Unreal Land, every single Dragon Ball YouTuber has had some kind of copyright issue come up at least once. Black and Fist and Quaman themselves almost lost their channels a few times. Me and Unreal Land also lost our channels. It's something that is just part of the game, you know what I mean? And thankfully YouTube has improved quite a bit since those old days of a few years ago, so it's a lot harder for us to lose our channels for copyright, and it's probably not going to happen. But it's still a nightmare when you have a video taken down by a Japanese company, and that's because Toei culturally, and Shueisha, and Nintendo, and all these Japanese companies, they culturally have different, beliefs than we do about their own IP. This is why Team 4-Star had so many issues with Dragon Ball Z Abridged, because the Japanese don't view the series the same way that we view it. And while I do think that we should respect their culture, I also think that they need to understand ours a bit more. The problem is that the Japanese culture is very xenophobic, and because of that, I know it's difficult for them to really understand the fandom outside of Japan. You got to understand that they didn't even think Dragon Ball was even that popular in the US until Resurrection F came out. There were people from Toei who came to that event in California and were shocked. What does that tell you? That Dragon Ball's been around in North America since the late 90s, the mid 90s even, and they didn't even know? So it just goes to show that their primary focus is the Japanese market. The Japanese don't care about spoilers. A lot of people here in our country do. That's why, we have certain sections of the internet like Reddit, 4chan, and of course we have message boards and YouTube and Twitter and all these different social media platforms where there are spoilers for different things like, and I'm not talking about just Dragon Ball, I'm talking about like Marvel movies, Star Wars, books, video games. That's just kind of where we live. And what I wanted to really discuss here is my view on spoilers, because I've had a lot of people ask me, like, does it piss you off that you get spoiled on stuff early? Which is a very good question. That's actually a very good question. The answer is no, and I'll tell you why. And this is something I think people got to think about. Because Dragon Ball belongs to Toei Animation, Shueisha, and obviously Fuji TV and Bandai, they have first priority on everything. The Japanese will always get their stuff first. Resurrection F came out in Japan 4 months before it came out in the US. Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods came out almost a year and a half before it came out here in theaters. Broly was only a month. Dragon Ball Superhero is about 10 weeks, which is actually longer than Broly, which is very confusing. I've had some of you guys ask me why, and I don't have an answer for you. I don't know why it's taking longer. I couldn't even tell you. So the problem with covering Dragon Ball is I've kind of desensitized myself to spoilers because of the fact that A, it's what I do for a living. This YouTube channel is my livelihood. And B, I'm so used to just reading about stuff and hearing stuff and covering stuff before it comes out that it doesn't even get me mad because I know what I'm dealing with. Dragon Ball is Japanese. And as much as I'm with all of you when it comes to waiting, I don't like waiting. If it were up to me, this movie would have a simultaneous worldwide release. If it were up to me, the Japanese dub of this movie would have come out the same way it did, and then the English dub would have come out the same week. If it were up to me. And I'm sure most of you listening to this probably agree. The big markets, North America, South America, Mexico, Canada, US, Argentina, and even Europe and France and Germany, the UK, all those countries, I mentioned Germany, France, all of them. They should have had this movie at the very least within a couple weeks of it being released in Japan. But that's not the case. And it's unfortunate. There's nothing we can really do about that. And you have to understand that back in the 90s, we had to wait years. And I mean literally years to get more Dragon Ball. We didn't even have, even outside of piracy, which we all did back in the 90s, we didn't have the Frieza saga, the Cell saga, or the Buu saga for years. We didn't even have the movies. They didn't even dub all the movies until the middle of the 2000s. What does that tell you? And then later on, of course, in the early 2000s, we had GT and Dragon Ball. Luckily, with Super and the internet, we were able to watch this thing, and because of the deal they made with Crunchyroll, the night it aired. And that was a great time for all of us, but that's because of the internet. Can you imagine if the internet had never existed? We'd have to wait a year or more to watch Dragon Ball Super outside of piracy, and the only way to pirate things without the internet is by tape trading, and that's much harder to do without the internet. You see what I'm saying? The internet's changed the game. So for me, I knew full well going into this movie that I would be spoiled on everything before the movie came out in the United States, before I was able to see it. Because it's the same thing with Dragon Ball Super Broly. It's the same thing with Resurrection F. I'm just so used to it. You know what I mean? It's just become it is what it is. I've gone from, going through the phases. You know what I mean? Where I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm confused, then I've accepted it. It is what it is. So the only time I've watched Dragon Ball and been genuinely surprised is when Dragon Ball Super was on the air and the early leaked images or the early leaked summaries for the episodes did not give us all the details. And that's rare, because if you remember those days, we got a lot of information early, but still, we were able to watch it live or at least a couple hours after it aired in Japan. It's a privilege, really, for us to watch this because it's not ours. Dragon Ball belongs to the Japanese. Same thing with One Piece and Naruto, and I do know that obviously they love our money and it's become an international phenomenon, but they always get things first. Should it be a simultaneous worldwide release? Absolutely. I think it needs to be. But for some reason, people at Toei Animation and at Shueisha are stuck in the past. The people that run these companies are older people who haven't quite grasped technology, don't really understand fair use laws, don't really understand what parody is, which is why I've mentioned Dragon Ball Z Abridged, and YouTubers and people are always getting copyright issues because they don't really understand. It's not something that they really get, what we do. And one of the things that people have credited me with many times, and I thank you for this, is keeping their fandom alive, and I appreciate that. People have told me, if it wasn't for you, I would have stopped watching Dragon Ball. And that's cool. I don't think I have that much of an impact on the fandom, but enough people have told me that to where I know I've impacted some people. Same thing goes for my peers who are all on YouTube and Twitch and Reddit. I got friends all over this fandom, and so do many of you. And the thing is, it sucks because there's no way to avoid these spoilers and interact with the fandom. We've got 2 months of manga chapters that are going to be coming out. We've got an internet that has pictures being plastered out everywhere. We have people discussing spoilers openly on various social media platforms without even giving you a warning. There is no way that you could possibly avoid spoilers for Dragon Ball Superhero for 2 months, unless you literally leave social media. You would have to abandon your account until the movie comes out, which is not going to be until August. That's a long time from now. Granted, time will fly by, but it's still a long time, and you can't just interact. You can try to try to mute certain words and not follow certain people, But it's impossible because there's going to be discussions between two other people who aren't even like your friends or people who you see just talking about it that are about the new content, and you can't even avoid it. It's literally impossible to avoid. You know, so when people say I have friends that wanted to go in blind, then does that mean that your friends were going to avoid the internet for 2 months? Is that what you're telling me? You would have been off the web for 2 weeks, or I'm sorry, for 10 weeks? That's a long time, dude. And people have a lot of friends, and they interact. They like talking about this stuff. So I think it's best if we just accept that's the way it is. Now, do I want there to be a better tomorrow? Of course I do. But I've become so desensitized to Dragon Ball spoilers that, yeah, you know, it's just, it is what it is. I've accepted it. And yes, I do wish that I was in Japan to witness this movie day one. I really, really want it to be. And I'm sure damn near everybody watching this video who didn't get to see the movie when it first came out probably wishes they were in that movie theater for the midnight screening. Because I know how hardcore y'all are. But because of this weird barrier that they've put, everyone else gets stuff late. And think about this. People in India and certain countries aren't even going to get this movie until months and months later. Like, some countries don't get their languages until like months, even years. It sucks, but that's the way it is. And I do wish that the companies would kind of remember this, but it's just not how they think. Japan is number one priority for them. US and Latin America and Canada is number two. We're not a priority to them. So we're going to find things out. Even if you were to unsubscribe from my channel, unfollow me on every social media platform, unfollow Chronicles, unfollow Hype, unfollow anybody, there's a very high probability just you talking about Dragon Ball, even if it's about classic DBZ or GT or old stuff, you're going to run into somebody who's going to say, hey, did you hear about Gohan doing this? Or did you hear about this? It's going to happen because people talk. That's just the way it is nowadays. And I've accepted it. And it's not the best circumstance, but it is what it is. So I wanted to talk about that because I've been trying real hard to keep things as vague as possible. But for some people, it's just not good enough. Like, I would have to make all my thumbnails black with question marks for them to be happy. And unfortunately, what they have to understand is you can't escape it unless you completely escape it. And that's really difficult to do. So it just is what it is. If anything, the spoilers that came out for the movie got me even more hyped to go see it. So those are my thoughts on spoiler culture in the Dragon Ball fandom. I mean, that's my honest truth. What do you think? I'll talk to you real soon. Take care.